welcome to Two Blondes and A Brokerage, and today we're here with Nicole Ruth, and we are talking about first-time home buyer programs, which I know a lot of you have been asking about. So Nicole, fill us in.
Oh my goodness. So are first-time home buyers still buying homes?
They're trying. They're trying.
An attempt.
Yes.
It's so tough. It's so tough. Most first-time home buyers. However, there is a generational wealth that's being transferred to millennials today. And so for down payments, you might find and be surprised at what first-time home buyers could afford. My first home cost $100,000, and I thought that was a lot.
Yeah.
That was a few decades ago.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we're looking at what first-time home buyers, a traditional first-time home buyer can afford today, they don't have $70,000, $100,000, $150,000 above asking set aside. So unless they have a gift from a grandparent, they're going to be in a position where they're going to have to be in this fight with the rest of the buyers. And so some will just say, well, I'll just wait until it calms down. And I get that. I mean, my heart goes out to them. So there are some strategies and some things that I am talking to borrowers about. One of the things, so I had a lovely young woman come into my office who was a first-time home buyer on a fixed, well, I won't say fixed income, but her hourly rate afforded her a $350,000 home, which, as we know, we talked about earlier, where if you're qualified for $350,000, you really have to go in at $300,000 or $280,000 because you know it's going to be upbid, and that puts you into a condo or a townhome situation. Well, but she could afford, with the rental income, a $600,000 duplex. Well, now that actually kind of puts her in the running. So can I buy something in Aurora? I mean, it's going to be further out. It might not be in central Denver, right, but she could also work from home. She was literally like, I was thinking about moving back to Ohio or move. I go, well, what about Fort Collins? Are you willing to move to Fort Collins and stay in Colorado? So now I can afford a duplex in Fort Collins where I couldn't afford a single family in Denver because I'm optimizing rental income. Right. So that's the one thing I would do. I would talk about what strategies do I have if I add. A lot of people want to do that with single families. They're like, well, but I'm bringing my roommate. Can I put them in another room and can I use it as rent? And you can't. You can only use the number of legal units. And people get caught up on this all the time because there's so many single family homes in the Denver market that have a rentable basement. Right. So many. And it's brilliant, right? It was the whole Airbnb craze until they got locked down and then they all went on the market. And now here they are.
And here they are. Yeah.
So we have this basement apartment, but it's simply a basement adjunct or adjacent to the home. It's still legally a single family. Right. So you can only have one unit. Or they'll have an ADU. It was marketed as a triplex up by Regis. There was a single family with a rentable basement and an ADU, an auxiliary dwelling unit in the backyard. Rentable, 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 still a single family home. So I have to be able to afford that as a single family home. This one was going for about $800,000, so now it's a jumbo single family home. Right. Just changes everything. Yeah. So I would definitely look into, what can I do as far as multiple units? I definitely also look at what's still on the market the second weekend, because we're seeing some, not a lot is available the second weekend, but if it is available the second weekend, maybe that seller's looking to negotiate. Interesting story, I just had a buyer go under contract this past weekend. The seller chose them because they were so elated they were caught on camera. The home security camera. Oh. And they were so excited as they were walking around the home, and the seller saw it, and she chose them over other buyers, right? And they didn't even have the best offer. So, and first-time home buyers. So what is the option that I have? So I'm not telling you to be excited in every home, but I'm just saying.
So I know on that point, actually, you should just anticipate being recorded, and that goes both ways, right? Your comments can be positive or negative. Someone's always listening. Have your conversations outside the home, I guess, unless they're really great. Yeah.
Well, I don't know that I'd do it on the front porch because everybody's got to ring.
Right. We need to be in the parking lot. We'll jump in the car.
In the driveway.
Yeah. Hide ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. So second weekends, maybe a little further out of town, looking at some alternatives. Renovation loans. We're starting to do more and more renovation loans because those homes that sit on the market the second weekend are typically those homes that you can't visualize, right? There's something wrong with them. They're outdated. They're configured awkwardly. Or they're on a main street. And I would also caution against don't just buy a home to buy a home. I get that. But some of those homes wouldn't sell as quickly in a regular market like the one that backs up to a grocery store or is on a main street. So you have to take everything into consideration. But back to the loan programs, there's a long way to get here. So one of the things, if I'm a first-time home buyer, I would look at down payment assistance, although it is harder to get something under contract, but if you're looking at the second weekend, you're looking at something that needs some repair, you're looking at something that is maybe further out of the metro, you could use down payment assistance. There's some great programs still available. You can also, VA and USDA I can't buy a multi-unit, just single family, but VA and FHA, I can buy a 2, 3, or 4 unit still with that 0 and 3.5% down. 0 for VA and 3.5% down for FHA. So as a first-time home buyer, I'd really look at those multi-units that might be a little bit awkward. Some more of them are coming on the market because investors are pulling out. They've seen the top of the market, maybe they're retiring, maybe they're optimizing cash. I've got a couple of fourplexes in Westminster that we're looking to sell, not because I think we're at the height of the market, but because they've grown so much in equity that I can take that cash and I can go buy 4 fourplexes. Right? So
I have a buyer for you.
Some investors are doing that right now. So we're actually seeing more multi-units trickle on the market. And then, as far as the down payment assistance, the FHA, VA, USDA, then I would just get creative. You can do as little as 3% down with conventional. Conventional is being chosen more often today than government. I hate to say that because really, interestingly, government is actually easier. Like if I get a buyer so a conventional loan requires me to do a credit refresh right before closing. And if that buyer has a credit faux pas during that transaction and now they no longer qualify, FHA and VA don't require that. And they allow for so much more hiccups on credit and other things.
Sure.
That I think about it, I'm like, okay, FHA is actually a better loan program for a seller, but they don't get that.
It's so tough to explain that to buyers too, because like as a listing agent, they're obviously advising their clients to only take conventional offers, and it's like, wow, I've seen some really strong FHA buyers that would beat out a conventional buyer any day.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate there's that misconception in our industry right now because it's hurting buyers.
It is.
It is hurting buyers.
It is, yeah.
It is.
So at the ADU, we use a lot of acronyms in real estate. So can you explain if a first-time home buyer is looking at possibly like a house in Littleton that might have a mother-in-law that's not ADU approved?
Yes.
How do you recommend or go about getting maybe an ADU if you're like, look, this could be a great property, but if it's not ADU, let's work on getting that once you purchase it so that you can utilize it as a rental instead of a single family. Do you have any tips on how you've helped first-time home buyers with that before?
I'm not 100% sure so you're talking about actually getting it rezoned to allow for ADUs? Because that's really the big thing, right? Is certain areas, and more areas are becoming allowing ADUs.
Right.
I've got a lot of friends that are only buying, I've got one investor that he'll only buy single family homes that are allowed to build ADUs within a $10 Uber ride of downtown. Like that's his rule set. So having an ADU, as far as changing the zoning, that's gonna be a challenge.
Right.
But if it's zoned, but it doesn't currently have one, it's not permitted, there's a difference.
Go to the city.
Yeah, so to be permitted just means what's the current, what was the specs for the build currently? And you can request that an ADU be built as long as it's zoned allowing that. But there's some beautiful, Amazon is selling, homes now.
Right.
You just cart it up to the back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The prime delivery just drops in the backyard and suddenly you have a rentable unit.
You're like, there's another suite.
There's some really sweet ones that I would live in as a primary.
I believe that.
I just think
and now my mind's like, oh, well good, I'll just buy a house and put an ADU on it. Amazon will help fund my next real estate investment.
You're buying your 3-plex in Arizona.
Yes.
That's very nice.
Actually, I'm gonna buy Nicole's.
That's works.
The one in Westminster.
I just think it's important to know that you can have the ability, as long as it's zoned correctly, to go, okay, this is gonna suck for maybe a month or 2 of me paying this, but until I get that ADU, then I can start getting my rental income. Because it's scary. It's a lot of money for people who have never owned or are renting or things like that, but it's not, as long as you've got the zoning.
There are some fabulously decorated, outfitted basement apartments, or ADU, auxiliary dwelling unit apartments in the backyard, above a garage, separate from the garage, attached to the garage. I've seen everything. I know you guys have too.
Yeah.
And how they create these is really brilliant. Tiny. My daughter, we just purchased her home, and it's got a back door that's right in front of the stairwell. And so you can either take the back door into the kitchen or down the stairs. So all you gotta do is add a door here. And so buying that as a single family home with as little as 3% down and maybe with down payment assistance, now all of a sudden I can rent out that basement to help offset that mortgage payment, which helps me afford more, right?
Yep.
Or the roommate situation until you get to a position where you can do it yourself. Yeah.
So when you're talking about buying like multi-units, so if you have a first-time home buyer that is looking to buy a multi-unit, and let's say they qualify like up to 620,
Yeah.
but they're looking to buy a multi-unit, how does it work when they go into the jumbo range purchase price on a multi-unit?
So the conforming loan limits are higher for 2, 3, and 4 unit. Like I can buy a 4 unit building, if you will, for over $1 million, 1.1, and still be in conforming and not be jumbo. So each one of them have their own higher loan limit that allows you to stay in conforming. Jumbo gets a little bit different in the sense that some jumbo lenders or aggregators don't allow for first-time home buyers, or they do, but they require more down. Some won't let you use rental income unless you have rental income experience on your tax returns. So you'll want to kind of look at what all the jumbo options are and make sure you fully understand, are you qualified for a conforming and a jumbo? And you might not be qualified for a jumbo using the rental income given your situation. It's a whole based on credit score and debt to income ratio. Jumbo just has more guidelines. But many people will qualify, they have in their mind that, well, I can't qualify for that because that's a jumbo.
Exactly.
So you definitely want to ask the right questions, get pre-approved, talk to the lender, say, what are my limits for the 2, 3, and 4 unit, because they're different, and then what happens if I bounce over by $1? And maybe it's just worth paying it back down again, but you might qualify, it's just stronger restrictions.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah.
Very few buyers that I'm going to be sending you
Yeah.
Nicole's way for that. But awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, and thanks for being with us here today. And if you guys have any questions, especially first-time home buyers looking to make some really good investment moves in the next couple months, let us know. We can put you in touch with Nicole.